Hi, everybody. I'm Pierre Bouvard, Chief Insights Officer here at the Audioactive Group at Cumulus Media in Westwood One. And today we are asking, can you put together a media plan for audio that doesn't have AM/FM radio? Well, the answer to that question is unfortunately no. You cannot check the box on audio without AM/FM radio. You put AM/FM radio into the media plan and you get a massive surge of incremental reach and an exclusive and massive, huge in-car audience. So to understand a little bit more about why this is, we're going to consult the just released Edison Share of Ear, which is the gold standard of audio time use. And the analysis of their data gives us 5 key takeaways. First, there is a big disconnect between advertiser perception of audio time use and the reality. Marketers and media agencies significantly underestimate shares to AM/FM radio and dramatically overestimate shares to ad-supported Spotify and Pandora. The share of ear data says AM/FM is the centerpiece of audio with a 63 share of ad-supported audio. And when you look at duplication between Pandora and radio or Spotify and radio, what you discover, somewhat surprisingly, is the vast majority of Americans only listen to AM/FM radio and never listen to Pandora or Spotify. So you cannot check the box on audio without AM/FM radio. When you look at the incremental reach lift, you discover that only a third of Americans are reached by digital audio in a typical day. And when you put radio in, that reach surges to 73%. The other key benefit of putting radio in the media plan is the massive and significant and exclusive in-car audience. The majority of AM/FM radio listening takes place out of home in the car, close to the point of purchase. And when Americans are in the car, they cannot be exposed to YouTube or digital or any other platform. And we discover that most digital audio tuning occurs at home. Share of Ear is the long-running gold standard study of how Americans consume audio. 4,000 Americans are surveyed annually. The data is released on a 4-quarter rolling average, and consumers indicate how much time they spend in minutes to various audio platforms. So you get daily reach and you also get daily time spent. Edison is also the publisher of the very famous Infinite Dial study that comes out annually, which is kind of the gold standard use of devices and audio in all of its forms. So to compare perception and reality, we turn first to advertiser perceptions. They are the leader in the measurement of advertiser sentiment. They conducted a study in August of 302 media agencies and marketers who have responsibility for national budgets exceeding $1 million. And then we compared those perceptions to Edison's Share of Ear from 2025 based on 4,000 average Americans. So marketers and media agencies were asked to estimate directionally what they think the audience shares of radio, Pandora, and Spotify were. When you combine the perception of the share to Pandora and Spotify, you get about a 41 share, and the AM/FM share is 26. So that is the advertiser perception. Now let's lay in the reality according to Edison Share of Ear. And oh my goodness, there is quite a gap between perception and reality. First, to the left of your screen, marketers and media agencies grievously underestimate radio shares by a major factor. In fact, AM/FM radio share is over double the advertiser perception. And then the reality, ad-supported Pandora, perceived to have a 16 share, really only has a 5 share of ad-supported audio. Spotify perceived to have a pretty big 25 share of ad-supported audio, unfortunately only has a 5 share. So there is a dramatic relationship here between perception and reality. And here is the most latest share of ear for adults 18 plus, we can see the big growing number on the page is podcast, which over the last 7 years has grown significantly and now represents 1 out of every 5 minutes of ad-supported tuning. Now, if we look across demographics, the 60 share that AM/FM radio has of ad-supported audio holds very consistently, men versus women, and even among Hispanics, but you'll notice among African Americans, because the podcast share is not as dramatic, the radio share is very significant. If we look at adults 25-54, that's 60 share for AM/FM radio, again, consistent across men, women, persons, Hispanics, but the African American share is 10 points higher at a 70. So now let's look at duplication between the various audio platforms. To the left of your screen, we're going to compare daily reach between Pandora and AM/FM radio. So about 5% to the left of your screen, which is the little gray slice of Americans in a day, only listen to Pandora, never listen to AM/FM radio. 5% listen to both AM/FM and radio, but a whopping 90% of Americans only listen to radio, never listen to Pandora. In the middle of your screen, Spotify versus AM/FM radio. It's the same kind of only, both analysis. 5% of Americans only listen to Spotify, not AM/FM. 6% are duplicated between both Spotify and AM/FM. And then a stunning 89% of Americans only listen to AM/FM and don't listen to Spotify. Let that sink in. 89% of Americans only listen to AM/FM and don't listen to Spotify. So if you have Spotify as a big chunk of your media plan, you are missing lots and lots of folks. Now, to the right of your screen, the relationship between between podcasts is more significant. They have a much bigger reach platform. So 15% of Americans in a typical day only listening to podcasts. 19% listen both to radio and podcast. And then 2/3 of Americans don't listen to podcasts and are only reached on AM/FM radio. So you really cannot check the box on audio without AM/FM. Let's combine all of digital audio together in a day and look at the net reach. It's 33%. So 1 out of 3 Americans in a typical day in America are reached by the combination of ad-supported Spotify, Pandora, and podcasts. But look at AM/FM radio. Alone, its reach is double. So if your buy is only digital audio, you're missing literally 2/3 of America. So now let's roll up each platform and look at the net reach of the various combinations. So if you start off to the left of your screen, just with Spotify, you're reaching about 6% of America in a day. You fold in Pandora, take out the duplication, you're up to about 12%. Still pretty small, but here comes podcast, much larger reach base. So now you're reaching about 1/3 of Americans. But watch what happens when you bring in AM/FM radio. Your 33 reach goes to a 73 reach. Incredible. And then when you add in the spoken word channels that accept ads of SiriusXM, you get a smidge more of reach. But truly, you put radio into the buy, look at what happens to your reach. Now, let's look at location of listening. Surprisingly, the vast majority of digital audio is consumed at home. I think we have the perception that, oh, people are out and about or here or there, but really the home is where most digital audio time spent occurs. And it's the flip side for radio. In car is really where AM/FM excels. So let's take a look at share of tuning minutes, podcasts, Spotify, Pandora. About 60% of all those tuning minutes happening at home, and then a little bit in some other place, a little bit in the car, a little bit at work. But AM/FM is dominant in the car. And when people are driving, and most of the folks driving to work in America, it's a solitary commute according to the census. So they can't be accessed by most digital platforms, streaming or online video, social media, etc. And the car is growing in importance for AM/FM radio. Back in 2015, 42% of all over-the-air radio listening happened in the car. Flash forward to 2025, it's now 53% of all American over-the-air radio listening is occurring in the car. That's a 25% increase over the last decade. And when we look at share of tuning minutes happening in the car, look at those younger demos. The younger the consumer, the greater the share of radio time spent that occurs in the car. So 63% of 1834 tuning to radio occurs in the car. 57% of 2554 radio listening occurs in the car. No wonder so many advertisers and agencies and stations are getting really interested in DTS AutoStage, which is the new connected car audience measurement service from Xperi that's pulling tuning data in the car from 6 million vehicles. Now, let's take a look at gender split. And what you discover is that if you care about women, if women is in your target, in-car radio is huge. So men, big shares of listening occurring in the car, but look, 72% of 1834 women of their radio listening occurs in the car, 72%. Among women 25-54, of all their radio listening, 66% is occurring in the car. So if you want women, if you want young demos, all roads lead to AM/FM radio in the car. And here is the current share of ear ranker of in-car ad-supported tuning. AM/FM has been in the mid-80s for the past 11 years. An 83 share of in-car ad-supported audio for AM/FM radio in the car, and everyone else way down the ranker in the single digits. Let's take a look at the in-car demographics. 77% of 1834 ad-supported listening in the car goes to AM/FM radio. And you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, what about all that Spotify listening? Well, most of the Spotify listening is to the subscription service, which does not accept ads. So if you're an advertiser and you want to place ads and actually reach consumers and build your brand equity, here is where the demos are. And all of these demos are on AM/FM radio in the car. So 5 key takeaways. There's a big gap between advertiser perception and actual share of ear reality. AM/FM radio is much stronger than the perception, and Pandora and Spotify way overestimated in perception. AM/FM radio is the centerpiece of audio. It has a 63 share overall of ad-supported audio and a whopping 83 share in the car. When we look at the duplication data, radio versus Pandora and Spotify, most Americans only listen to AM/FM and don't listen to the other platforms. So you really cannot check the box on an audio media plan without AM/FM radio. And the big piece there, massive incremental reach for radio and that huge and exclusive in-car audience. The Audio Active Group here at Cumulus Media in Westwood One is a full-service national brand advisory. We do a ton of campaign measurement, whether it's brand lift, sales effects, search and site attribution, and most importantly, we do commercial pre-testing, which is critical because creative quality is 50% of sales effect. Each and every week, we publish a new audio insight. You can find it on the Audio Active Group blog on our websites, cumulusmedia.com, westwood1.com. And when you're there, you can sign up to get the weekly audio case history sent directly to your email box. Thanks so much for the opportunity to take you through the latest share of your data and why your audio media plan has to include AM/FM radio for that massive reach, that massive incremental reach, and that huge exclusive in-car audience.